Wow, I can't believe we're back again so soon. This is episode 4 of Marketing Q&A. And as usual, we're bringing you only the very best guests on this show, the people who really are making a difference in marketing and can teach us so much about this crazy world around us. Well, today, he's got a variable title. He bounces between lead of operations, co-founder, but all we care about is that the company's called CoSchedule. CoSchedule.com. I'm not going to tell you why this is important because he's going to do it for me. I'm going to introduce him straight away. Without further ado, Garrett Moon. Hello, how are you?
Hello, thanks for having me on the show. I'm doing good, very good.
Good. And I struggled, I have to say, to even pronounce the name of the city that you're based in. Began with M, something like that. I struggle with you Americans. You seem to make things up all the time.
Yeah, you know, our city used to be called Edmonton a very, very long time ago, but they renamed it to Bismarck, and it was a much more, throaty kind of name, so it changed it quite a bit.
I like that. It's got historical connotations, something that America doesn't seem to do very well.
That's true.
Brilliant. Well, listen, I'm so excited to have you on the show because you are not only such a driving force behind this product we're going to cover in just a second, but specifically, you've got this multi-talented air about you. Not only are you clearly fixated on doing things better for marketers, for their companies, their clients, but also you write an absolutely great blog. Recommend everybody goes there. You can get there off the website, but listen, to hell with it. We won't mess around with convention. CoSchedule.com/blog to get Garrett's word of wisdom. But let's talk about this mighty atom that is CoSchedule, Garrett. I'm clearly interested in it, which means everybody will be. So let the cat out of the bag. What is it all about?
Well, CoSchedule is a content marketing, blogging, and social media promotion tool. I mean, it's a lot of things all in one. We call it a social media editorial calendar for WordPress. And the gist of it is that we integrate directly with your WordPress blog, and we allow you to create your blog content and your social media content together in one place and visualize it on a monthly calendar. So, it's a way to organize your workflow and streamline social media promotion as part of your blogging strategy.
You've clearly aimed for the right platform because it seems like 101% of the world these days uses WordPress, the best place to start. Is that right? Because I keep hearing all these wacky, wild, way out stats saying that all the biggest companies are using it. Are you finding that WordPress is really that big platform that the world is looking for?
Yes, absolutely. We researched it quite a bit, and WordPress, out of all content management systems, of all websites that run a content management system, WordPress is over 50% of that market, and that's a pretty large percentage. I think the next closest is either Drupal or Joomla, and it's about 9%. So I mean, the distance that WordPress is and distance from those other CMSs is pretty huge. And in addition, in the publishing industry, WordPress is the name of the game.
Now, I talked to Sarah Hill on the last episode of the show all about Google Glass and Google Hangouts, and this in many ways would have been a perfect way, a great platform to present and demonstrate what CoSchedule actually does with WordPress. But can you give us an oral walkthrough of what the user would do to get the best out of this tool?
Sure. So when somebody uses CoSchedule, they first of all install a small plugin that allows us to connect to their blog. And what we do is we sync all of their content, their authors, their categories, and all that major information, their post types, into CoSchedule so that they have access to all of it right from CoSchedule. And then what our interface allows them to do is manage their editorial calendar, so they can choose dates on the calendar, they can create draft posts, they can assign authors to those posts, and then that'll in turn set off notifications to that author, and they can set up a task. I could say, hey, you need to have this post done by Thursday, and then 24 hours before that post is due, we'll make sure that they get another notification and another email, and we'll remind them. So, we behave as a productivity tool for their team as they're going through that content creation process. And, most of our users, even on some of on small blogs or what we consider a hobby blog, have 2 or 3 different people involved in the process. So that team aspect of CoSchedule and of the editorial counter process is really important. And then once you get your post kind of done and you've used the editorial comments and the tasks to get things completed, we also facilitate that publishing process by allowing you to create your social media posts promoting that blog post right in line inside of WordPress or right from our calendar interface at CoSchedule.com. So
now, you've got loads of really pretty people, which makes me feel quite good. I feel like I'm hanging out with the cool kids when I'm at CoSchedule.com/features, which is where all the good stuff comes together. Very, very attractive people. And I presume they're members of your team. You don't need to say yes or no. Keep the dream alive for me. But the simplicity and the efficiency is really what we as marketers are all craving. This way that we can pack another 50% of productivity into our day. And you mentioned before this is great. The fact that you can tie together, you can integrate all of your social media outbound efforts connected to the blog post, all part of this CoSchedule plugin. It ties together so that you've got, it's almost like set it and forget it, really, to a point, isn't it? You've got the conversation coming up, but fundamentally the amplification of that blog post is really the starting point, the springboard, the litmus test of how it's going to progress.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, one of the areas where a lot of bloggers, fall short is social media promotion. I mean, it really is. And we have several posts talking about this, and we've done some research on, how many more clicks can you get through by just having a good social media promotion schedule and thinking through that a little bit. And before CoSchedule, I mean, these are solving real problems that we were having as a company doing our own content marketing, and clients that we were working with were having problems. And the problem is we were using 4 to 5 tools to publish a blog post. We had an Excel spreadsheet, we had a Google Calendar, we had a social media tool of some kind, we had WordPress in there, and there's a lot of process in that it gets in the way, and it prevents marketers from doing what they're supposed to be doing, which is marketing and promoting their work.
I'm in the unenviable position of using a content management system that is frankly putrid. It's the worst kind of scar upon the web that I've ever come across, and unfortunately that clearly isn't WordPress. Will I see CoSchedule become web-based rather than tied to a specific CMS, do you think?
Right now, we're constantly kind of monitoring that, but right now we don't have any plans to add a platform in the very near future. It's on our radar. But we don't have immediate plans for that. Right now, the WordPress market is a very interesting one. It's really growing and expanding, even after being out there for 10 years. So that's pretty exciting to us, and we kind of want to keep doing that. Plus, some of the things that we're really able to do that give CoSchedule its special sauce and make it really useful for marketers is the deep integration that we can do with WordPress because it's an open source platform. So that's a big advantage that we wouldn't always find in another CMS platform.
2 things you need to know, WordPress junkies, is that CoSchedule costs $10 a month, which ain't too bad at all, I think, per blog. Free for 14 days, so you can suck it and see. And the second thing is this.
I want to get digital. Can you hear my laptop dock?
I don't mind telling you that our voiceover artist gets paid royalties, so by playing just half of that, I get the benefit of having a dulcet tones and only giving it 50% of that. So I think it's fair to say we're all good with that. You're listening to Garrett Moon, who is the ninja, self-appointed by me, of CoSchedule, this incredible tool for your WordPress blog that brings together social media and creating blog posts, scheduling them, that's where the code comes into it, and making it all work fluidly. Now, talking about blogs, Garrett, you are a particularly deft blog post writer. I've been hooked on your blog at coschedule.com/blog for a few weeks now since somebody introduced me to it, which is why I really wanted you on the show. And one of the you write very, very well, but you also write to help people understand the benefits and the merits of using CoSchedule, which to me is a perfect way of demonstrating your content marketing prowess. Well, to talk to you about, and it's quite a long title, goes against my best conventions. I always try and pack them into a single deck, but what the heck, it sounds good. The Best Practices Guide for Making Sure That Your Posts Look Good on Social Media. Visual really is everything, isn't it? It's the first step in building that relationship.
Yeah, and I kind of start the post talking about we have about 9 major social networks out there, and they're changing constantly and becoming more and more visual. We just saw this week Twitter released their new landing pages for profiles, and they're very visual. They have large images at the top, very similar to what we're seeing on the Facebook timeline. So the visual aspects of the social networks are really important, and making sure your post looks the right way on each one is becoming a more and more complex problem for everybody.
Where did you get all this information from? Because it's incredible. You've gone into you write very long form content. It's the stuff that is packed with facts, packed with nibbles of advice and insights, and that's just great. But it must take you forever to put these single posts together.
Sometimes, this one in particular is one that's been on my list to write for a while, just because this is something that we've been going through ourselves. Just as we're optimizing the CoSchedule marketing, we're looking at these different post types and how are they performing, and what could we be doing better here or there. And in particular, we've been working on a feature called social previews, which actually in CoSchedule gives you an exact pixel-to-pixel preview of what it's going to look like on the social network before it gets sent.
Wow.
So we've been studying this, very closely. So, and as most of the time for these articles, these are things that we're teaching people because they're things that we've dug in on our own and learned. We don't. There's a lot of Me Too content out there. We really try to provide something very different, very practical, hands-on marketing advice. The kind of stuff the post that we want to be reading. If I could have read this post 3 months ago as we were starting to build this feature, boy, that would have saved me a lot of time. So hopefully I can save somebody else some time going forward.
I was reading with great interest. There's a panel in this particular post, and I'll be linking to it from the show notes for this episode at marketingqa.com. But you can get there. Just search on the web, type something into Google like one of the best blog posts on social networks ever. I'm sure it'll pop up there. But You've got a Facebook best practices checklist, which I was really interested in. And then I suddenly started thinking, actually, does it really matter? Because Facebook is pulling the rug from our very feet, Garrett. It seems to be stripping us of the rights to reach out to the people that we've spent years cultivating relationships with. Does this bother you? Is this some kind of crazy over nothing? Do you think this has got some real implications for the way that businesses should or could use social media?
Well, I think it does. I wrote a post not so long ago on the CoSchedule blog that was titled, very strikingly, "Facebook is dead." And what I really was getting at with that post is, for marketers, we need to really move beyond Facebook as our platform, for our voice. The other platforms, Google Plus is really growing a lot. We're seeing a lot of activity there for a lot of our customers and ourselves. And Twitter, of course, is continuing to make hay. So what we kind of were pushing for is, let's back off Facebook a little bit. We've put so much emphasis on it in the social media marketing world over the last few years. Let's start focusing on our content core, like our blog, the content that lives on our website, and start kind of using the hub and spoke model, where our site is the hub and the networks are the spokes that we reach out into the communities, but they're not the reason that we exist. And I think we went too far with Facebook, and in some ways I think marketers kind of ruined it for themselves, because Facebook is now penalizing us for a few years of abuse maybe beforehand. I don't know.
It feels to me like a lesson that needed to be learned, Garrett, that we were putting all our eggs in one basket. You so correctly made that point. But also we were treating it as a product when in fact we as the customers were the product of a service that was only existing to ultimately make money, to break even. It's not a charity. And yet we expected these great things from it, that we would build communities on the spoke, whereby instead of looking at our websites and the things that we physically or virtually own, that we were reliant on this other great beast to become nothing but a golden egg. And actually it's turned into anything but. You mentioned Google Plus. We talked, but I can't even say Google. Isn't it a worry when you're in technology and you can't say Google properly? It freaks me out. But you also mentioned Twitter, and something that blew my mind was Twitter hover cards. I didn't realise we could do this yet, and yet there you are, bold as brass, going on about them. What's that all about?
Yeah, Twitter hover cards is actually they're not as new as you might think, and I think the biggest reason that we don't see them is Twitter has been a bit slow in updating all of its applications. So slowly over the last year or so, you've seen the website get updated. You've seen each mobile app that they have get a complete redesign and a refresh, where they're starting to take advantage of some of these hover cards. I think there's so many people that use it on the phone and tablets and stuff, but we just don't see some of these features that are on the web. But what they are, they're basically akin to the Facebook link preview, where we're seeing a thumbnail, a headline, and a description of the content on the page before we actually click through and go to the website. So it's kind of a preview of your content in Twitter. So they still have it as a beta feature, but we only provide a link for testing your site to make sure that your hover cards can be enabled for your blog. And then if you go to their verification page, you can submit your URL to your website, and they'll approve you usually within an hour or so. Very quickly. So they're pretty liberal with how they approve people, but they still consider it a beta feature. So it'll be interesting to see what they're going to do with that feature.
It's funny how some of these things just lie dormant for so long. I remember it was, sometime late last year that suddenly people started figuring out that if you just atted somebody at the start of your tweet, only they and people who follow you, so their followers and your followers, would ever read that tweet apart from the recipient. It was like a DM with benefits, I guess. And
right.
Now the hover cards thing has transpired. And a mate of mine, Ian Anderson Gray, goes by iag.me on the web, actually started getting all fancy pants and showed me a way to use one of these hover cards to drive emails to a list. I thought, this is amazing. So there's so much potential as you're effectively an early adopter, aren't you? A pioneer by getting in now.
You are, and I mean, I think the advantage to those things is you start learning how to use them most effectively now, and because eventually all of those features get overused and over-implemented. So usually, I think you'll see that with Facebook. You'll see people that they've had a great Facebook audience over the last couple of years, and they've taken the time to build it. They're still going to have good luck with Facebook. It's going to slowly be dwindling, but they're still going to have a good basis to build from. The people who are getting in now on Facebook and really trying to build an audience now, you have a very, very big hill to climb in order to get there. And I think that's the way it goes with a lot of these features. You kind of have to be early and jump on them, learn the intricacies of them before they get ruined down the road.
I wonder what Mary Smith's going to do now that Facebook's facing such toil. That's going to be an interesting one. Love the girl. She's half Scottish. But, when you build your business around a social network, you've got to be ready for the next big thing. And you've got to have something in the wings to alleviate the pressure of having somebody or something meeting its demise. So that's interesting. I have got to say, I'm really quite enjoying this now. It's going really, really well. I'm loving the fact that you know so much about this stuff. And also, content marketing. I mentioned before I derided the phrase a little bit because I don't think still lots and lots of people know what it is. Your latest blog post is telling people why you don't need a content marketing strategy. I'm not going to talk too much about that because I implore every listener, all 6 of them, to go over to coschedule.com/blog and check it out, because not only has it got words of wisdom in there, it's got lots of funky diagrams, and everybody likes an infographic, don't they? And
that's right.
So I think that's a well-founded post. Before we move into the final segment of the show, Garrett, I want you to share with us some of your learnings from building the CoSchedule content machine in terms of, have you picked up any tips that you can share with Marketing Q&A, how to maybe it's find the audience that you should be targeting with your product and service, or whether it's figuring out the right content to match the needs or to match the benefits that you offer to your customers, or just any overall thoughts on how marketing perhaps isn't done as well as it could be right now, things that people perhaps could do better.
Yeah, I think I have a great answer on that. I mean, one of the things that, CoSchedule is a product, and it's a fairly new product. We just launched here towards the end of 2013. I think it was in September. And so, we haven't been out there all that long, which means that the previous year of our lives has been spent building CoSchedule and learning more about the type, the people that might be buying it down the road. So last January, we had the idea. It was something that had been burning kind of in the back of our mind for quite a while.
Sure.
And, but we needed to validate the idea to make sure that if we build this, will they come? There's the Field of Dreams movies, always kind of rings in my mind with marketing, because we kind of think if we just launch the campaign, everyone's going to flock in, and that's not always the case. So we put together a panel of possible users that, we launched kind of a landing page. They entered their email address, and they, we would contact them and set up a time to visit. And we showed them, here's what we're planning to do. Here's the problems it's going to solve. How would you feel about this? We have never written a line of code, and we started to get information from actual, people who might use the product, and giving us feedback on how to build it. And I think that process from day one was part of CoSchedule. Very successful launch. We've had a very nice, successful growth curve since we were out there. We're really, feel like we're hitting on some major problems that bloggers and content marketers have. And they're responding to it, but it was because we got to know them early and we started with conversations.
Market research seems so alien to some people. A lot of people just seem to go, oh, well, I want it. Why doesn't anyone else? It's the biggest problem, getting those customer insights early, as Garrett mentioned. Such a critical part of any successful business startup. Couldn't have put it better myself. Now, as we start to wind up this episode of the remarkably average Marketing Q&A, pepped up no end by Garrett Moon, who's talking with us today. I wanted to find out more about your podcast, that was, Garrett, because you've clearly got a voice for radio. Better Up Marketing sounds great. What kind of stuff did he talk about on there?
Well, it was very much like this show. We found people that we thought were really smart, and we asked them a bunch of questions, and that makes for great radio and great podcasting, I guess.
You're not kidding. Well, I'm going to try and find it in the archives. Maybe it's still on iTunes. If not, there's always the Wayback Machine. Your secrets are never safe online. Just ask anybody affected by Heartbleed. Less said about that, the better. Anyway, thank you so much to not only the audience, thank you for listening today, but specifically to CoSchedule's co-founder, Garrett Moon. Find out much more about him and his work at CoSchedule.com, and to heck with it, download that goddamn plugin. It will revolutionise your blog. Garrett, if people want to get in touch with you, can they tweet CoSchedule or you? And if so, how the heck do they do it?
Yeah, tweet at CoSchedule, and if they want to, tweet me directly, it's at Garrett_Moon.
Perfect. I hope you had a good time today. I certainly have. It's been a wrap as we know it. Episode 4 of Marketing Q&A is in the can. Thanks for all your time, Garrett. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Had a great time.